So we're going to read the Khan Academy article about a very interesting figure called the Tlatilco female figure. This essay is written by Dr. Rex Kuntz, who actually have met at the AP Art History exam reading. Tlatilco figurines are wonderful small ceramic figures, often of women, found in central Mexico. This is the region of the later and much better known Aztec Empire, but the people of Tlatilco flourished 2 or 3,000 years before the Aztec came to power in this valley. Although Tlatilco was already settled by the early preclassic period, from about 18 to 1200 BCE, most scholars believe that the many figurines date from the middle preclassic period or somewhere around 1200 to 400 BCE. Their intimate, lively poses and elaborate hairstyles are indicative of the already sophisticated artistic tradition. This is remarkable given the early dates. Ceramic figures of any sort were widespread for only a few centuries before the appearance of Tlatilco figurines. The Tlatilco figurine at the Princeton University Art Museum has several traits that directly relate to many other Tlatilco female figurines. The emphasis on the wide hips, the spherical upper thighs, and the pinched waist. Many Tlatilco figurines also show no interest in the hands or feet, as we see here. Artists treated hairstyles with great detail and care, however, suggesting that it was hair and its styling was important for the people of Tlatilco, as it was for many peoples of this region. This figurine shows not only an elaborate hairstyle, but shows it for two connected heads on the same body. We have other two-headed female figures from Tlatilco, but they are rare when compared with the figures that show a single head. It's very difficult to know exactly why the artist depicted a bicephalic two-headed figure as opposed to the normal single head, as we have no documents or other aids that would help us define the meaning. It may be that the people of Tlatilco were interested in expressing an idea of duality, as many scholars have argued. We might understand that concept of duality as being able to live in the physical world at the same time that we can know of the existence or see into the existence of a spiritual world, that dual kind of awareness or consciousness. So here we look at this woman. It's as if with one face she might be looking into the spirit world, while with the other face she's looking into the physical world. That might express that idea of duality. So back to the essay. The makers of Tlatilco figurines lived in a large farming village near the great inland lake in the center of the basin of Mexico. Modern Mexico City sits on top of the remains of the village, making archaeological work difficult. We don't know what the village would have looked like beyond the basic shape of the common house, a mud and reed hut that was the favored house design of many early peoples of Mexico. We do know that most of the inhabitants made their living by growing maize or corn and taking advantage of the rich lake resources nearby. Some of the motifs found on other Tlatilco ceramics, such as ducks and fish, would have come directly from their lakeside surroundings. Here we see an image of a male figure. Tlatilco artists rarely depicted males, but when they did, the males were often wearing costumes and even masks. It appears that that is true in both cases on this one that we see right here. Masks were very rare on female figures. Most female figures stress hairstyle and or body paint. Thus, the male figures seem to be valued more for their ritual roles as priests or other religious specialists, while the religious role of the females is less clear but was very likely present. How were these things found? In the first half of the 20th century, a great number of graves were found by brickmakers mining clay in the area. These brickmakers would often sell the objects, many of them figurines, that came out of these graves to interested collectors. Later, archaeologists were able to dig a number of complete burials, and they too found a wealth of objects buried with the dead. The objects that were found in greatest and largest quantities, and that enchanted many collectors and scholars of ancient Mexico, were the ceramic figurines. Unlike some later Mexican figurines, those of Tlatilco were made exclusively by hand, without relying on molds. It's important to think then about the consistent mastery shown by the artists of many of these figurines. The main forms were created through pinching the clay and then shaping it by hand, while some of the details were created by a sharp instrument cutting linear motifs onto the wet clay. The forms of the body were depicted in a specific proportion that, while non-naturalistic, were striking and effective. The artist was given a very small space. Most of the figures are less than 15 centimeters high, in which to create elaborate hairstyles. Even for today's viewer, the details in this area are endlessly fascinating. The pieces have a nice finish, and the paint that must indicate body decoration was firmly applied when it is preserved, as in the two-headed figure that we're looking at here. Many scholars doubt that there were already full-time artists in such farming villages, but it is certain that the skills necessary to function as an artist in the tradition were passed down and mastered over generations.